Well, hello everyone again. Welcome to my first ever live stream. I start this video the same way I start all my videos. So, if you're here for the first time, my name is Israel. I make videos about language learning and a podcast about linguistics. The thing is, I haven't decided what language I'm going to be using for this stream. So I think it depends on who's watching. So everyone who's watching, leave a comment. Tell me if you're one of my English speaking or Cantonese speaking viewers. Oh, I hope everyone can hear me. Oh gosh, not sure if I set up everything correctly. I hope I did. So anyway, I'm going to keep talking English, but you know what? You guys have seen what languages I can speak. Most of them quite mediocre, but you know, if you want to ask any question or type any comment in your native tongue or any other tongue, just go for it. You know, I can't promise I'll be able to read everything. Wow, okay. אתה יכול ללמוד עברית? אני אשמח להיות ואולי גם לעזור אם תרצה. I'm not teaching myself anything today. At least that's not my main goal. I'm here, well, as you see in the title, I want to show everyone how I'm doing what I'm doing every day. I'm going to be focusing on Duolingo. Which is something that everyone knows, right? Everyone uses a bit of Duolingo. Depends on which language, obviously. But I want to first talk about why I'm doing this live stream, because this is completely new for me. Because if you go back to my first ever video, the one where I speak 11 languages poorly, it's actually exactly 1 year ago. So in a sense, today is the 1 year anniversary of my channel. So I just wanted to do something special. Welche Sprachen hast du ganz einfach angefangen zu lernen? Maybe, you know what? I'm going to leave questions for later, because I want to talk about some important things first. Actually, you know what? Insgesamt habe ich weiß nicht, ganz viele Sprache angefangen zu lernen. Also anfangen ist leicht, aber gut lernen, gut sprechen ist sehr schwierig. Deswegen würde ich sagen, ich habe nur, weiß nicht, 7, 8 Sprachen gelernt, aber weiß nicht, 16 oder so Sprachen angefangen zu lernen. Okay, anyway, yes, so first of all, happy first anniversary to myself, and also I'm using this opportunity to, you know, get ready to prepare for a live Q&A podcast that we're doing. So if you're one of my Cantonese speaking viewers, save the date. So we are doing a live Q&A with my co-hosts Samuel and Kenneth for the first anniversary of the podcast. So that will be on the 2nd of October. Hold on, what's the time? I think that's around 2 o'clock UK time. I'll put that in the description. I actually forgot the exact time. But yeah, so that one will be for patrons only. But if you're interested to talk to my co-hosts in particular, just remember to join our live podcast on Discord. And of course, I'm also doing this live stream as, you know, some good practice, because if you've seen my video about my Polish learning goal, my end goal is actually to do a talk live. So it's going to involve a lot of nerves. That is good practice as well. So let's go to the main topic of the live stream. But okay, or kannst du Letzteburgisch schwätzen? Vielleicht. Ich habe nicht versucht, also vollständig Letzteburgisch zu verstehen. Aber wahrscheinlich kann ich ein bisschen. weil ich habe versucht also ganz viele deutsche Dialekte zu verstehen oder mir anzuhören. Vielleicht kann ich das mal verstehen, besonders wenn du es schreibst. So, I'm going to talk about Duolingo today. So let's go to the screen. Whoa, this is software magic. This is exciting. So why do I want to talk about Duolingo? Because everyone's doing Duolingo, and I'm doing that every day as well. As you see, I have around 150 days streak. I used to have, I think a few years ago, went up to 520 days, exactly that number. You would know that number if you're Chinese. But I lost that, and then now I've been doing Duolingo consecutively for half a year. I'm mainly doing Hebrew. So I think 2 days ago I wrote a review of Duolingo Hebrew, where I wasn't exactly nice to it, but I was being very fair. I talked about the pros and cons of this course exactly. Okay, Luxembourgish is a separate Germanic language. Yes, whether a kind of speech is a dialect or a language, that's a completely different topic. It's a huge topic, and we talk about that quite often on the podcast. But I understand what Luxembourgish is. It's a variety that is quite similar to German, I would say, because German itself comprises many very different so-called dialects. So it's mostly political, but I know that it's to a certain extent quite different from German, but so is Yiddish, other kinds of languages. But okay, let's go to Duolingo. So I'll talk about how it works now, because I think when I used it many moons ago, it was a bit different. You used to only have to do each skill once, and then you'd get gold. But now, each skill. So, I'll just do a quick introduction if someone isn't using Duolingo regularly. So Duolingo consists of a whole course, many skills. A skill is sort of maybe a big lesson or a domain of vocabulary that they want you to learn. So each skill will have maybe 5 to 9 lessons depending on the topic. Ausbausprache. Aha, danke schön. Yes. So I haven't seen that term before, but thank you for the tip. That seems quite technical. I'll get back to that later. So on Duolingo, as I said, each skill has maybe a couple of lessons, and each skill also has 5 levels. That means you have to do the same thing 5 times in order to get it to gold. And you see, I haven't got many gold, and actually no gold at all in my Hebrew course. But when you see different colors, that means I've got to different levels. Each level will be different. Will include different kinds of exercises. For example, in the lower levels, you have very relatively simple kinds of exercises. So maybe vocabulary, maybe some very simple translation with lots of tips, matching depending on the course, and later on it's going to force you to maybe type your own answers instead of using the word bank, which is a helpful tip that lets you choose words instead of typing words. So without further ado, I'm going to, just do one lesson. Take this as if it's like a gaming stream, except the game is Duolingo, which it is to me. So I'm going to do this skill called Future 2, which is a skill that helps me practice different verbs in the future tense. And if you read my Duolingo Hebrew review, you will know that this is one of my gripes, because this course sometimes puts too many things in the same skill, such as this one. But I'm just going to go through it quickly and show you how I might react, or how I might help myself remember the stuff better. I will stop the train. אני אעצור את הרכבת. So yeah, I'm on think level 2, so it's mainly still going to be simple translation.
הן ייקחו את כל מה שיש לנו.
So as I said, there is a thing called the word bank. So if I do this, I can just tap the words with my touch screen, or the mouse, obviously. But again, as I said in the review, I strongly recommend against using the word bank, because it doesn't force you to recall the words. Like when you see a word, you're like, I know it, I know the word, but it's mostly going to be passive. Passive vocabulary means you recognize a word, you know what it means, but when it comes down to it, you don't know how to use the word. So I basically try not to use the word bank unless I'm in a hurry. For example, when I'm trying to save my streak at almost 12 o'clock midnight. So so sometimes you get to listen to the target language and then translate it, either dictate or translate it. So what I try to do is to focus on listening instead of reading, because when I read, it's easier to recognize the words and so. But especially with this course, the audio is quite fast and quite challenging. So I would start with listening.
הן ייקחו את כל מה שיש לנו.
So I listened without reading, and I heard הן ייקחו את כל מה שיש לנו. So they will take everything we have. And then I can check what it's written there. הן ייקחו את כל מה שיש לנו. Okay, so that should be correct.
אני אעצור את הרכבת.
אני אעצור את הרכבת. I will stop the train. So that's the same one as before. So one thing I don't like about Duolingo is that sometimes it repeats this exact same sentence. I know they have to do it because the resources are limited, but it doesn't really test whether I know the sentence or the word or not. So if I could design the course, I would make sure that every sentence is different, but with lots of overlap, so that you can practice the same skills and words, but you can't just recall the same sentence wholesale from memory. They will not read the right recipe. So now we have an exercise where you translate into the target language, in this case Hebrew. So I think if I remember correctly, don't quote me, I think this kind of exercise shows up later on, maybe in level 2 or afterwards. So they will not read the right recipe. So here I have a word that I don't remember. So I try to find I try my best to at least recall part of the word. So I think it starts with mem, and then it has something to do with mitkonnen. So let's see. Okay, mitkon. So because mitkonnen means, if I remember correctly, to get prepared. So the recipe has something to do with prepared. So that's how I try to get towards the word. And if I can't recall it, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. I can just check here. הם לא ייקחו את המתכון. Oops. Okay, I missed a word. And that's one thing that always frustrates me when I focus on part of a sentence that it's hard to get right and then I miss a word. But it happens.
היא תשכח את שיעורי הבית.
היא תשכח את שיעורי הבית. She will forget the homework.
הנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
So now we have one of the listening dictation exercises. So this is the kind of exercise where lots of people complain because the audio is quite fast. And in most Duolingo courses, you have a slow audio option. Not in this one. So what I do is I listen again and again until I can get it right.
הנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
אנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
הנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
את הכביסה בחצר. And when I do these dictation exercises, I try my best to do everything in one go instead of part by part. I think this helps me put the sentence or the words in the bigger picture to help me try to internalize the whole sentence as one unit.
הנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
נשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר. So that means the women will put the laundry in the garden. I prefer garden. But, so let's
זה
go on.
ישים את סין על המפה.
זה ישים את סין על המפה. This will put China on the map. I really want to know what this is about. Sounds like Chinese history to me, which is something I used to be quite interested in. So again, this is a repeated sentence. It's exactly the same thing as before. So, היא תשכח את שיעורי הבית.
הוא יקרא לכל האחים והאחיות שלו.
הוא יקרא
לכל האחים והאחיות שלו.
יקרא לכל האחים והאחיות של...
הוא יקרא לכל האחים והאחיות שלו.
הוא יקרא לכל האחים והאחיות.
הוא יקרא לכל האחים והאחיות שלו.
I think I need a ha here. שלו. He will call all his brothers and sisters. Oh, by the way, since we're doing Hebrew right now, I think I might want to, say some fun facts about this language. It's quite a fun language, I must say. It's, the thing about Hebrew, the most well-known thing is that you don't write the vowels, which is partly true. There are vowels in here, but that's why it's very
אבא שלו ייקח
important
אותנו לגן החיות.
to be able to recognize patterns. And I think I made a video about this before. It was in Cantonese, but with English subtitles. It was about recognizing patterns or finding patterns, which is the thing I really think everyone should do in language learning instead of just words. Patterns are important. So Hebrew is a really good practice in finding patterns. For example, what kind of word might have what vowels, etc. אבא שלו ייקח אותנו
אבא שלו ייקח אותנו לגן החיות.
לגן החיות. His father will take us to the zoo.
החיילים הצעירים ילמדו שהחיים הם לא קלים.
Okay, that one's too long.
החיילים הצעירים ילמדו שהחיים הם לא קלים.
Okay, I'll give up doing in one go.
החיילים הצעירים ילמדו שהחיים הם לא קלים. החיילים הצעירים ילמדו שהחיים הם לא קלים.
ילמדו.
החיילים הצעירים ילמדו שהחיים הם לא קלים.
שהחיים הם לא קלים. שהחיים הם לא קלים. קלים. Oh, and the thing I do like about Duolingo Hebrew is that the sentences are not very wacky and weird. I know the wacky sentences help you remember better, but then sentences like this, they're actually useful. You can say, oh, life is not easy. שהחיים הם לא קלים. And I will try to learn this whole sentence as one word, like החיים הם לא קלים. החיים הם לא קלים. So one day I might want to say this to people. It's something I can imagine myself using in real life. אנשים ישימו את הכביסה בחצר.
הילדים הנמוכים ילמדו איתנו.
ילמדו. הילדים הנמוכים
ילמדו איתנו.
ילמדו איתנו. The short children will study with us. So I don't know what this course has against short children, but there we go. לפי דעתי הם ילמדו what's the study of the exam? שאנחנו לומדים למבחן ביחד. Oh. Yeah, okay. So, I want to talk about a fun fact, another language fun fact. In English, when we say what we call that's called reported speech. For example, I knew that I was dumb. So you would use was because the whole thing is in the past. But in both languages I'm focusing on, which are Hebrew and Polish, they don't do that. Instead, they sort of put themselves in the shoes of the reporter. For example, when I say I knew that I was intelligent. Let's be nicer to ourselves. I knew that I was intelligent. So I sort of imagine, okay, first I say I knew, and then from the perspective of me in the past, I am intelligent. That is the present. So in both Polish and Hebrew, you would use the present tense instead of the past tense. But sometimes in very complex sentences like this, it's really hard to get exactly the right tenses that they expect. And as I wrote in the review, Duolingo Hebrew is quite strict. When you don't formulate a sentence in the exact same method, in the same way that they expect, then you get it wrong.
אם תרצי, אני אלך הביתה.
אם תרצי, אני אלך הביתה. If you want, I will go home.
כשנהיה זקנים הם כבר ישכחו אותנו. כשנהיה זקנים הם כבר ישכחו אותנו.
כשנהיה זקנים, I forgot.
כשנהיה זקנים הם כבר ישכחו אותנו.
הם כבר ישכחו אותנו. Aha! And the thing about Hebrew is that there's only one past tense and one future tense. So in English we have things like they will have forgotten us and I had been doing something. But no, Hebrew's like, nope, let's just keep it simple. It's in the future, use the future tense. They will have forgotten us. That's also in the future. They will forget us. But that's also the thing you might notice when you talk to native speakers of, say, Hebrew, because they might use the wrong tense in English. They might use some very simple tenses. Same thing in Polish. When I was in Poland, talking to Polish people, not just in Poland, anywhere, when I talk to Polish people in English, you notice that they say, they use the progressive tenses a lot, like I was doing something. I remember a tour guide in Auschwitz, he would say, they were killing people, when in English normally would say they killed people. That's because of the different verb system. And that's super interesting to me. When I'm learning a foreign language, I try to notice how those foreigners speak English, and that way I can find out the differences in the languages, and what I should watch out when I'm speaking that language. So for example, in Polish, I would know when to use which form of the verb, just by the way Poles make mistake in English. Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of them, but it's quite helpful.
הם לא יקראו את המתכון הנכון.
They won't read the right recipe. הם לא יקראו את המתכון הנכון. And in a Duolingo lesson, how it works is that if you make a mistake, it gives you the same sentence, the exact same exercise once again at the end, so that you practice again. And the thing is, most of the time it's a really careless mistake, so it frustrates me more than it helps me. But it's good practice to repeat something. Repetition is always important in language learning. לפי דעתי, is that what they want? Yep. הם ירצו שנלמד למבחן. I hope it's the right one. ביחד. That's the one. Okay. So there it is. There is my streak. So that's one demo of how I do Duolingo. So the next thing I want to talk about is scheduling, because once you're inside a Duolingo course, you get quite a lot of freedom. I mean, there's also quite a lot of restrictions. For example, when you go down this so-called skill tree, you have to finish one level before you move on to the next level. For example, here I have to do objects, present reflexive, adjective 3, before I can start doing the ones below. So supposedly, the ones below depend on things that you learned in the skills above, supposedly. I don't think they plan it that well in Hebrew, but in other courses, they do quite well. And of course, when you're a beginner, obviously everything you learn is going to be crucial to what you learn next. And but other than that, you have a lot of freedom. For example, now I have a lot of skills at level 1, level 2, and very far from gold. Take this for example, medical. I haven't finished even level 1 of medical, but I have finished level 1 of future, level 2 of future 2. So if I keep doing it, I get to level 3. So the question is, do I spend my time to get future 2 to as high as level as possible, or do I spend some time learning new things? Of course, that's a very personal thing, but I'm here to talk about, how I use it. That is in the thumbnail of this live stream. So I think it depends on the level I'm currently at in the language in general. So if I'm in a beginner level, I just start learning for a few months, I would say I want to be exposed to as much different content as possible. So for example, if I were to start Hebrew now, I want to sort of breeze through the entire checkpoint 1, 2, get to level 1 as soon as possible, because I want to get a feel for how the language is like, how it works, read about the grammar. Well, I don't study grammar, I read about grammar, and then I study it through the exercises and examples. And then afterwards, I can go back. And most likely when I'm doing this, when I do it very quickly, I quickly forget what I learned before. And that's fine, because I'm in no hurry to use the language in real life. Most of the time I start a language by dabbling. So that's how I ended up with lots of level 1s. But afterwards, now I'm in sort of a intermediate level. I prefer to start going back to older things, start to revise them, get them to a better level, or help them take root in my brain. So actually quite recently I've started doing some better scheduling. So perhaps I would alternate between getting a skill to the next level and learning something new. So maybe I would do 1 or 2 lessons in a new skill, and I would try to get a previous skill to the next level. And just Heinrich. What was I saying? Yes. So the thing about Duolingo you might not know is there's a very important trick. If you haven't been using Duolingo regularly, but you want to, it's that if you do 2 lessons. Okay, hold on. I'll start again. In level 1, you have to do every single lesson because you need to learn everything. But after level 1, for example, when you're advancing to level 2, if you do 2 lessons perfectly, that is, no mistakes whatsoever, then the site allows you to skip to the next level. But it allows you. That means it asks you whether you want to skip it. So again, I think that would depend on my current language skill level, like actual language level, as well as the skill in question. For example, things like infinitive. It's a grammar thing, right? It's about verbs, how to use them, the forms, And usually these kind of things, I kind of master them quickly. I get the idea, so it's all a matter of practice. So if I manage to do 2 perfect lessons, then I would take the offer to skip to the next level. But with things like abstract objects, with things like maybe feelings or medicine, it's not about learning a pattern. It's not about learning a rule. It's about learning 20 separate things with no relation to each other. So in this case, I would say nope. I would like to do every lesson in every level just to make sure that I get to review everything, because I've done this before. I've done one of these, vocabulary skills on Duolingo, and then it asked, oh, do you want to skip the next level? And then I said yes, and then I said yes again, until the final level. And in the end, because that skill was particularly easy, so in the end, I ended up being very familiar with the first 2 lessons of the skill, because I can just do 2 of them and then skip the rest. And on the final level, I had to do every single lesson, and I realized, oh my god, I don't know anything beyond the first 2 lessons of the skill. So if you're doing things like this, content lessons, vocabulary, things like this, I would recommend that you don't skip. You should do every single lesson in order to keep practicing. But I mean, if I want to get to gold, that's also always a skill. And the very funny personal story, I always get super nervous when I'm doing the first 2 lessons. Sometimes I might even cheat and allow myself to use the word bank, because sometimes I just want to get it done quickly. I'm worried about making a single mistake, especially on the Hebrew course when it's so freaking strict about everything. About the exact form, exact version of the word that you're using. So I'm so nervous in order to get the first 2 lessons right. But then once I make a mistake, I'm like, oh, nope, it's messed up anyway. So I'm just going to do everything like a normal person, allow myself to make mistakes, and so on. So that is my little story about Duolingo Hebrew. But overall, Hebrew is really good fun. It's the hardest part really is reading, because you need to know the word before you can understand it, before you can read it aloud. With languages like English or just any alphabetical language. Okay, English is an exception. English has too many exceptions. But with like German, when you see a word, you know how to read it, and then you can ask people about it. But with Hebrew, you have to look it up in a dictionary before you can actually say it out loud. And don't ever trust text-to-speech software, as in the software where you click a button and it can read aloud a word or a sentence in Hebrew for you. Never trust that. It's always wrong, almost. So it's a good challenge. But again, it's mostly about finding patterns. So let's do a brief intermission, because again, if anyone just got here after I started, welcome again. I'm here to talk about Duolingo, and after this Hebrew section, I'm going to reveal the secret language that I've been learning for a month, just dabbling for fun. But this live stream is to celebrate the first anniversary of my channel, actually of my first ever video on this channel. It was published on the 14th of September. So if you haven't seen it, go back to see it. It's still, the most popular video on my channel. And if you have any questions to ask me, just pop it in the chat. I'll decide whether to answer it. You can try different languages, but I'm not sure if I can do it, because I'll be honest. Most polyglots, especially the successful internet polyglots, they put a lot of time into maintaining each and every one of their languages. And I personally just don't enjoy doing that. When I'm studying a new language, I just want to put all my time into doing this. And usually I'm studying 2 or 3 languages at the same time. Whether that's a good idea, I'm going to talk about in another time, but I want to put all my time into those languages instead of revisiting my older ones. So usually with the languages that I learned quite well in the past, such as German, Swedish, French, this kind of thing, my speaking level usually goes down a bit, but I usually keep watching things in those languages so I still understand them quite well. And once again, if you are one of my Cantonese speaking viewers, remember to save the date. We are doing a live Q&A podcast with my 2 co-hosts on our Patreon Discord on the 2nd of October. Yes, so that will be, if I'm not mistaken, that's on the weekend. That's a Saturday. So Saturday, 2nd of October, we're doing a live Q&A with all our co-hosts, and that will be a podcast episode as well. And if you're already a patron, please come and vote, because we need to know if people are actually going to show up to our Q&A. If there's no Q, then there's no A. So please, if you're a patron, come to vote on our poll about whether people will show up. So that's on patreon.com/Rhapsody in Lingo. That's the Patreon for our podcast. So come vote and tell us if you can attend. I think if we don't get like 4 or 5 listeners at least, we're not going to do it. So that would be a shame, because it's really an exciting occasion to celebrate our 1st anniversary of the show. So anyway, back to Duolingo. So now let's go to the exciting part where I reveal what I've been learning. So if you follow my Twitter, if you know me personally, you might have a good idea what I've been dabbling in. So if you don't know, dabbling means, I'm just trying out a language, doing it casually. Maybe I don't do any hardcore studying. I just do Duolingo, or maybe I look at some textbooks and stuff. So very, for fun. That's usually how I start a new language. That's how I started Hebrew in the beginning. I wanted to dabble in Hebrew because, my name is Israel. I thought that makes sense. And then I got more fascinated with the language itself. So what have I been doing for maybe a month or so? That's Welsh. So click. Yeah, it's loaded. So Welsh, if someone doesn't know what Welsh is, it's the language in Wales, which is in the west of the United Kingdom. It's one of the Celtic languages, which are quite different. They are Indo-European languages, but they're quite different from basically anything I know. As far as I know, no cases. The verb comes first, and what else? They have this thing called initial mutation, where there are a crap ton of different situations where the first letter of a word changes. That is super annoying, but it's good fun. So I've been doing it just for fun. I did a few lessons, and actually, as I said before, sometimes I insist on getting some skills to gold, because I think those are really important. For example, the present tense, this is the perfect tense, this is a different verb, and verbs tend to be the most important part of a language if you want to express anything efficiently, because with other things it's really, like for maybe abstract concepts, when it comes to abstract concepts, it's really easy to talk around something, like I just describe what that thing is. But with verbs, it's really hard to avoid it. So I really want to get the verbs to a good level. And well, something I didn't know until I started Welsh. It's a language that has, well, from what I know anyway, it's sort of a diglossic situation, like in Cantonese, where they have a literary language and a spoken language, and they are quite different. I think the grammar is completely different, because in the colloquial Welsh, as they call it, as Wikipedia calls it, basically the verbs don't conjugate. That means the verbs don't change by person. Instead, you have a helper word. Like in English, we have I can do, I want to do, want to do isn't one of them. I can do, I should do, I would do. Those are the helper words. So after the helper word, the next word is sort of, it doesn't change, right? You don't say I can did, it's I could do. So in Welsh, basically all the verbs use a helper word. So that's really handy, because I don't have to memorize, 10 different forms of the same verb. I just memorize one verb, one form of the verb, and then I memorize the helper verb. The helper verb does change a bit, but I just memorize the helper verb, and then I stick the main verb onto the helper verb. So that's quite handy, I would say. But the reason why I'm using, why I'm having fun with Welsh is that I'm actually moving to Manchester. Well, in the future, I don't know when exactly, but I know I am doing that. And so my friend Daisy from at Dictation, from my interview with her, I'm going to link the interview as well later on. She lives in Manchester and really loves going to North Wales, which is maybe an hour or two from Manchester. And she told me all about it, how beautiful it is, and how convenient, and how lots of people speak Welsh there, as opposed to South Wales, such as Cardiff, where people mostly speak English. Well, that's what I heard anyway. Haven't been to Wales ever. But that sounds quite interesting, because the UK is a country that's so dominated by one single language. We have the strongest language in the world, English being the national language. Yes, national language, not official, but national language. And then, other smaller languages are just trying to survive. And even though people there all speak English, they have to moving to the red side. What's the red side? Yeah, people they all speak English, but they work hard to keep their own language alive, to keep it in their communities, which is quite interesting to me, because in cases like Taiwanese Hokkien, if you may, they have a very similar situation where they are also threatened by a very strong language, and they are trying to keep their language alive. And same for the other languages in the UK, Gaelic or Scots or Irish. Is there Irish in the UK? Yeah, maybe, etc. So it would be quite interesting to see how they do that when I actually go there anyway, or to see how they successfully did that. What else? Yeah, and later on I learned that Welsh has quite a bit of dialect differences. So North and South Welsh, or actually there are 5 dialects I heard. They are very different. I mean, they mostly still have the same grammar, but the words are different, the pronunciation's different. So I'm going to tell you more about these differences when I go to actually doing the lesson in a minute. But Bolo, about Manchester United. Aha, okay, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately I don't watch football at all. Well, I watch the finals. I pretend to know what's happening, but not a regular viewer. But I know about Manchester United, obviously. Actually, I may or may not end up living in that vicinity. Well, unless the football fans get too drunk in the area. But that's another story. So let me start doing one lesson, and I'm going to talk more about it and about my experience with this particular course.
Mae hi'n hanner nos.
Mae hi'n hanner nos. It is midnight. Yeah, as I said, Welsh is a very... I mean, with all the Celtic languages, the verb comes first, as far as I know. So it's quite different. Mae is the main verb.
Mae.
So is it
Hi'n.
midnight? Hanner nos.
Mae hi'n hanner dydd.
Mae hi'n hanner dydd. It is midday. And one thing I really liked about Welsh, compared to, for example, Irish, that I've tried before. One thing I like about Welsh is the sounds, because it's got all the wacky sounds in one language. It's got the and the, which are in English, but if you check out our podcast episode 21, these are super rare sounds in the world, and Welsh has them. And of course, as an English speaker, I don't have problem with these two sounds. And they have...
Mae'r bws yn mynd am hanner nos.
They have the ll. And recently, my Hebrew teacher told me about her trip to Wales, and she asked me how to pronounce Llandudno, I think, and I could explain. It's a sound where the air comes out from the two sides, lla, and if you don't know anything about Welsh, it would be completely flabbergasted by this sound. Anyway.
Mae'r bws yn mynd am hanner nos.
Mae'r bws.
Mae'r bws yn mynd am hanner nos.
Hanner. Hanner. Is it or
Mae'r bws yn mynd am hanner nos.
Am hanner nos. Another... I wouldn't say that's fun. It's a bit weird thing about Welsh is that the Y and the W are both vowels, so you have to get used to that. Bus. So it looks like it doesn't have a single vowel in it, which is so weird. But when you get used to seeing way too many W's and Y's in one language, it's fine.
Mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch.
Mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch. It is mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch, 10 o'clock. And here is the initial mutation thing that I mentioned. So this one is supposed to be dig.
O.
But then because after this word
Hi'n
it becomes thick, and the hard part is not remembering how it changes, but it's remembering when it changes, and because there are a million different cases where this happens. Is it like the horizontal sound? Yes, exactly. Yes, and we talked about this in the podcast in episode 18 when we talked about different Cantonese dialects or languages. So yes, and Hoisanwa, that one has a hl, and I was told that parts of Dongguan also has the hl instead of a s. Sam, unfortunately, my grandma doesn't have that. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunate. She's my grandma. But yeah, it's the exact sound. So it's super rare in the world. You find it in places like Wales, places where not many people think about often, and then you have it in Canton, in Guangdong somehow. So it's so fascinating. Mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch. And yes, when I'm doing a Duolingo lesson, or when I'm doing anything in my foreign languages, I always try to practice or rehearse reading out loud. I try to say the same thing to my students. For example, I'm a French student. I emphasize how important it is to get the flow of a language instead of just words. So, for example, I don't try to learn Mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch. I keep practicing Mae hi'n ddig o'r gloch so that I can sort of feel the language a bit better. Especially in languages like this. Native speakers claim that the initial mutation thing helps the language flow better. So I want to know how differently it flows. And now I've done it a couple of weeks. I think I have a rough idea of how it might feel like it flows better when you say Mae hi'n ddig instead of Mae hi'n dig. Mae hi'n ddig, Mae hi'n ddig, Mae hi'n ddig instead of Mae hi'n dig. But I'm still trying to get a better hang
Am
of it.
faint o'r gloch di chi'n codi?
Am faint o'r gloch dy chi'n codi? Am faint o'r gloch do you get up? And yeah, same thing. I'm faint o'r gloch. Some students might try to remember it bit by bit. I'm faint o'r gloch. But I always treat it as one word. It's called chunking. You learn language in terms of chunks instead in word by word. So I'm faint o'r gloch, like one word. I'm faint o'r gloch, dy chi'n codi.
20 munud I 5.
20 munud I 5. 20 minutes to 5. Oh, and this is a good opportunity to talk about the Welsh dialects. Well, I'm still a beginner, obviously. I'm learning about time. But as far as I know, I'm trying to learn the North Welsh dialect, because it's, you know, the part of Wales that is closer to Manchester and the part where more people speak Welsh. And the most fundamental thing about North Welsh is the different pronunciation of some vowels, particularly the U.
20.
So it is very counterintuitive. In all of Wales, the U is a E. But if I'm not mistaken, in North Wales, it's sort of a E instead of a E. It's a I. I'm not the best at imitating vowels and sounds, but I looked up the IPA and tried to do that when I'm practicing, which is why reading aloud when I'm doing Duolingo is so important. And the thing is, the text-to-speech software, which is the software that generates the recordings, I really don't know what dialect it is. I think it's Southern, but I'm not exactly sure. So it doesn't say the I, maybe something like that. So I try to understand it, and then I use what I know about the North Welsh pronunciation to reconstruct the word in my head, to reconstruct the sound, and then try saying it. So I would try to say 20 munud I 5. 20 munud I 5 instead of 20 munud I 5. But it's still very foreign to me.
Mae hi'n 5 munud ar 20 wedi 8.
Mae hi'n 5 munud ar 20 wedi 8. It is 5 minutes ar 20. Oh no, 25 ar 20. 25 minutes after 8. It is midnight. Mae hi'n hanner nos. And one thing I like about Welsh, another thing, is that the default it. So, for example, when you talk about weather, it's sunny. When we talk about time, it's 3 o'clock. In English, we have it. But in Welsh, you have he, which is actually she. He means she, just like in Hebrew. He means she. So the default default it word, so the default pronoun is she. So you know what? Yeah, you know, anti-patriarchy. I love it. Same. It's quite similar to Hebrew, because in Hebrew, the default pronoun is still male, but in Hebrew, the default number is female. So, for example, if you say the number 10 without context, you say SL, which is the female form, instead of Asara, which is the male form. So you know what, I like it. It's you know, very unconventional, because in the vast majority of European languages, the default is always male.
Mae Sioned yn mynd am hanner dydd.
Mae Sioned yn mynd am hanner dydd. Sioned is going at midday. Mae hi'n hanner dydd.
Am faint o'r gloch, mae hi eisiau cinio.
Cinio, dinner. Dinner?
Cinio.
Lunch.
Cinio.
Okay, if anyone's watching, can they explain the lunch and dinner thing? I know it's different in all parts of the UK. Some people say dinner, some people say lunch, some people say supper. But like, what is cinio? And tell me in the comments, you know, how do you name your meals? Is it lunch and dinner, or dinner and supper, or lunch and supper, or what? I'm really interested. I've been living in the UK for 3 years, but I'm still getting used to this kind of thing. Cultural shock, maybe.
Am faint o'r gloch, mae hi eisiau cinio.
Does she want kinyo, lunch? I'll just put lunch because it says lunch here.
Cinio.
Oh, and this is a good example of the dialects thing because
Eisiau.
the course by default teaches Southern Welsh.
Hi
So
eisiau.
it's a shy, but then I'm trying to learn North Welsh, so I just keep reminding myself it's isio. Mae hi isio instead of a shy. Mae hi'n 10 o'r gloch. 20 minutes. 20 munud wedi 3. Am 10 munud I 3. I G. Again, it's the mutation thing. So 3 is 3, which is good, easy to remember. But then when you say 2 3, it's eg instead of eg. So I can see why they claim it's, it flows better. It's easier to pronounce. What time do you get up? I'm 20 o'r gloch. Dachin. It starts with a C. A codi. I'm 20 o'r gloch. Dachin codi. 20 minutes to 5. Ugain minute. The vowel. Ugain minute I bimp. Dwi'n mynd am 5 munud ar hugain wedi 1. In. Okay. Northern parts would say tea to mean a meal more so than the southern parts. Picards, what do you mean you're not a native? I mean, you're not native Brit, but you're a native English speaker. So I think you might have a better insight than I do. Tea to mean, so they say tea to mean some sort of meal. I mean, that's interesting because in Hong Kong we treat tea as a meal as well. Obviously we got afternoon tea from the Brits, but then to us tea is the third of 4 meals in a day, especially if you want to get fat. So so yeah, that's quite interesting. I do miss our Hong Kong style afternoon tea. Very, very high in calories. Mae hi'n hanner dydd. Yeah, I know you're from Canada. Yeah, I mean you're a native English speaker. So how do you name the meals? Do you do that like we do in Hong Kong? We have lunch and dinner. It's quite simple. Is this like the international English variation? Is it only the Brits that do the weird thing with supper? I have absolutely no idea. But yeah, so that's my Duolingo demo. A quick, very short review of Duolingo Welsh. Someone told me that this course sucks, and I don't completely disagree. The organization is a bit slightly weird. For example, you get dialects before you get things like question words. Because I'm trying not to look up things myself, I just want to test out this course. So I still don't know how to say things like what, when, why, how. And I don't know how to say there is, there are. But somehow I learned about dialects, and I learned the perfect tense, I have done something. So it's a bit weird. The audio is lackluster. It's too computery. But you know what? If you're interested, you want some exposure to this language, it's good fun. It's they have very meticulously written notes that talk about grammar and things like that, and I really enjoy reading about grammar, not necessarily studying grammar, but reading about it. Okay, so I'd say breakfast, lunch, dinner. Yeah, breakfast, lunch, dinner then. I think breakfast, lunch, dinner might be, relatively international English, if you will. And I recall learning about supper in school, but I I was quite confused what it meant. I think I just took it as an alternative for dinner. And then it's not until I came to the UK that I realized that dinner or supper can sometimes mean lunch. But anyway, Welsh is free on Glossica. Yes, Welsh is free on Glossica, as well as many other, minority or endangered languages, such as the smaller Chinese languages or the other languages of the UK. So I started doing Welsh on Glossica as well. But the thing is, I'm already doing 2 languages on Glossica. And that's, oh my god, there's like 500 sentences a day. So I might have to give up some old language in order to start Welsh for real. But, if I ever do Welsh seriously, I'm sure I'll let you know. And if you want to know what I think about Glossica, I've written 2 reviews of the platform. One of them is the old courses, and then the newer one is on the Glossica online platform. And long story short, I really enjoy Glossica. Sometimes it gets boring, but if you have the determination, I think it's a really good resource. So that we're nearing the end of this live stream. I actually do enjoy Duolingo. Just basically don't expect to learn a language to fluency with Duolingo. It's especially good for fun. It's good for building a habit. It's good as a jump-off point to explore more of the languages. For example, you might go to Close Master, which I love, or you might go to textbooks afterwards. But you can just play like a like a game, like I'm streaming it right now. All right. So once again, happy first anniversary to my channel, to my first ever video. I might do another speaking languages video again in the future, like the first one that I did, but it's a bit difficult because, as I said, I don't like dedicating too much time to maintaining my existing languages at a tip-top level, so it might be quite challenging, but never say never. And once again, if you are one of the listeners of our podcast, we are doing a live Q&A on our Patreon Discord. So if you want to come ask me and other co-hosts some questions about linguistics or our thoughts on languages and other things, maybe Duolingo, anything, come join us on the Patreon Discord. The Patreon is patreon.com/rhapsodyinlingo. So thanks for watching. It's been a fun time. I mean, I think on average I've had 3 viewers, but thank you so much. Oh, and please give me a like if you don't mind. That will really help out the channel. And thanks for watching again. Keep your eyes peeled on my channel. I have lots of interesting, exciting things planned for the future. And I think that will be it. Bye.